The letter arrived on a Tuesday, which already put Sasha Hart in a bad mood. Tuesdays were deceptive. Mondays were honest in their misery. Tuesdays pretended to be manageable while quietly ruining your life. She stood in her kitchen barefoot, holding a mug of coffee that had gone cold sometime around her third unread email. The envelope was cream-colored, thick and formal in a way that made her stomach tighten. She didn't open it immediately. That should have been her first clue. The return address belonged to a law firm she vaguely recognized something old-fashioned and unnecessarily confident. The kind of firm that handled wills, estates, and the mess people left behind when they died. Her Aunt Lydia. Sasha exhaled slowly and finally slid her finger beneath the seal. Dear Ms. Hart, we regret to inform you of the passing of your Aunt Lydia Hart. Regret was such a polite word for it. Lydia had been the kind of woman who wore red lipstick into her 80s, who believed wine was a food group, and who once told Sasha quite seriously that love was a choice you make every day, even when you want to throw a shoe at someone. Sasha sank into a chair reading the letter again, slower this time. There it was, the reason for the formality, the reason her chest felt tight. Lydia didn't leave her money or jewelry, or the antique clock Sasha had admired since childhood. She left her the guest house. The guest house, Sasha muttered aloud, as if correcting someone invisible. It sat on the edge of a small coastal town she hadn't visited in nearly 15 years. A place of salt air, chipped paint, and memories she'd packed away neatly, like everything else that hurt. She skimmed ahead, shared ownership pending renovation compliance, co-beneficiary, temporary residency may be required. Sasha blinked. Shared, she said alarmed. She read that sentence 3 times. Her inheritance came with a condition and apparently with another person. She dropped the letter onto the table and stared at the ceiling. She had rebuilt her life carefully after the divorce. New routines, new rules, no surprises, and no entanglements, and now this. A house she didn't want in a town she'd left behind, shared with a stranger. Her phone buzzed. A message from her friend Sophie lit up the screen. Coffee later. Sasha smiled despite herself. Inherited a house, she typed. Possibly a nervous breakdown. She stood, grabbed her keys, and made a decision she would later regret. She would go and sort it out, then she would sell the house. Sasha decided 2 things before she even stepped out of her car. 1, the guest house looked worse than she remembered. 2, she already hated the man standing on the porch. He was tall, annoyingly so, with broad shoulders and an easy, infuriating posture, like the world rarely challenged him, and he'd made peace with that. He leaned against the porch railing as if it belonged to him, toolbox at his feet, sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms that had absolutely no business looking that competent. He looked up when her car door shut, and he smiled, the kind of smile that says, "You're late, but I'm not judging you, even though I am." "Morning," he said, pushing off the railing. "You must be Sasha." She paused, one foot still in the car. "And you must be trespassing." He laughed, actually laughed, as if she'd told a joke. "Jax," he said, offering his hand. "Jax Rowan, I co-own this charming health hazard with you." Sasha stared at his hand like it had personally offended her. "You're the other beneficiary." "That's the rumor." She straightened, closed the car door with more force than necessary, and adjusted her sunglasses. "You don't look like a lawyer." "You don't look like someone thrilled to see me." "Excellent observation," she said. "We're both overachieving already." He grinned wider. This was going to be a problem. Sasha walked past him toward the door, fishing in her bag for the keys. Jax followed unbothered, like a golden retriever who decided she was interesting whether she liked it or not. "So," he said, "long drive. 4 hours. Oof, rough. And unnecessary," she added. "Once I sign the paperwork, I'll be gone." Jax stopped walking. "Ah." She glanced back. What? Well, about that. She felt that faint prickle between her shoulder blades, the sensation of impending nonsense. You can't sell it yet, he said carefully. I absolutely can. You absolutely can't. Sasha turned fully now. Listen, Jax, I don't know what arrangement you think exists here, but my aunt left me this house and she left me the other half, he finished, still smiling, which felt wildly inappropriate given the circumstances. Condition being, we renovate it together to code, otherwise neither of us gets anything. A gull screeched somewhere overhead, as if laughing at her. You're saying, Sasha said slowly, that I cannot sell my inheritance unless I renovate it with you. Yes, she took a breath. Temporarily. Correct. Living here. Yep, with you. Unless you prefer the shed. Her eye twitched. Why? She asked calmly. Would my aunt do this? Jax shrugged. She liked to meddle. She hated meddling. She adored it, he corrected. She just called it character development. Sasha pressed her fingers to her temple. I don't have time for this, she muttered. Jax tilted his head. You strike me as someone who schedules joy. I schedule everything. Yeah, he said. That tracks. She shot him a look. Excuse me. You just walked into a building with exposed wiring and immediately tried to emotionally detach from it. That's called survival. That's called denial, he said cheerfully. She turned the key in the door with unnecessary aggression. Inside, the guest house smelled dusty. Sunlight filtered through sheer curtains. For a split second, Sasha remembered being younger, happier, sitting at the kitchen table with her aunt and believing life was something that happened for you. The moment passed. Jax stepped inside behind her. So, he said, setting down his toolbox. Roommate meeting. I am not your roommate. Temporary cohabitant. No. Renovation partner? Barely. Future best friend? She turned slowly. Let's establish something very clearly, Sasha said. I don't do chaos, I don't do surprises, and I don't do men who smile like they've already won. Jax's grin softened, just a touch. Good, he said, because I don't do walls and you've got some impressive ones. Their eyes met and Sasha looked away first. This arrangement, she said, grabbing her suitcase, will be strictly professional. Jax picked up his toolbox. Of course, he agreed. I'll draw up rules. She paused. Rules? Oh, definitely, he said. Rule number 1, no pretending we don't enjoy this. She laughed despite herself and immediately hated him for it. The coffee machine died at precisely 6:42 a.m. Sasha knew the time because she was standing in front of it, blinking in disbelief, when the digital display flickered once and went dark, taking her last thread of emotional stability with it. No, she whispered. No, no, no. She pressed the button again. Nothing. She unplugged it, then plugged it back in, and whispered a prayer to whatever household gods governed caffeine. Still nothing. Behind her, a voice drifted in, entirely too alert for that hour. Morning, sunshine. Sasha closed her eyes. Don't call me that. Jax leaned against the kitchen doorway barefoot, hair still damp from the shower, wearing a t-shirt that had once been white and now looked comfortably lived in. He carried a mug in one hand, her mug. How are you holding up? He asked. She turned slowly. Why are you drinking my coffee? Because you labeled it emergency only, he said, and this house is definitely an emergency. That was imported. From where? Somewhere expensive and judgmental. Jax took another sip. Delicious, Sasha inhaled sharply. The coffee machine is broken. He peered at it. Ah, yeah, that thing's been on borrowed time since 2009. Why didn't you tell me? Because you looked like someone who needed to believe in something. She stared at him. I don't believe in you, she said, and yet here we are. Jax chuckled. Fair. She reached for the kettle. It made a sad, hollow rattling sound. Jax winced. Okay, that one might be on me. What does that mean? It means I meant to replace it eventually. Sasha pinched the bridge of her nose. This, she said, gesturing vaguely at everything, is why I don't share space with people. Because appliances age. Because people disappoint. Jax's smile dimmed. Noted, he said. She didn't miss the shift. To distract herself, Sasha grabbed the folded papers from the counter, the temporary co-ownership agreement the lawyer had emailed the night before. She slapped them down between them. Let's get this over with, she said. Rules, expectations, boundaries. Jax's eyes lit up. I love boundaries, she snorted. You say that like it's a lie. It absolutely is. She shot him a look. Rule 1, separate bedrooms. Already done. She blinked. Excuse me? He gestured down the hall. Master bedroom's yours, the smaller room's mine. Relief washed through her. Good, she said. Rule 2, no unannounced visitors. Agreed. Rule 3, we keep this professional. Jax nodded. Define professional. No flirting. He raised an eyebrow. You think I'm flirting? She opened her mouth, then hesitated. No, she said firmly. Rule 4, don't argue semantics. He grinned. That one might be tough. She scanned the rest of the document. We split renovation costs, shared decisions, timeline of 6 weeks. 6 weeks, Jax repeated. That's basically a rom-com montage. She froze. Excuse me. He shrugged. Paint splatters, music, mild sexual tension. There will be no sexual tension. Jax leaned back in his chair. You're already tense. Her foot kicked his chair leg under the table, and he laughed. Okay, he said, putting his hands up. Let's talk sleeping arrangements. I already did. Yeah, he said. About that. Her stomach sank. The smaller bedroom, he continued, turns out it's currently not sleeping ready. What does that mean? It means the ceiling fan fell. When? Last night. Why? Gravity. She stared at him in horror. So, where did you sleep? He hesitated. Oh, no, she said softly. No. The couch, he said quickly. She relaxed until he added, but it's soaked through from the storm last week. Her eye twitched again. So, she said, her voice dangerously calm, you're telling me that there is one functional bed. Silence settled between them like a dropped plate. Sasha laughed once. Absolutely not. Jax shrugged. I can take the floor. You will not. Why not? Because I'm not sharing a bed and I'm not forcing someone to sleep on the floor like this is a post-apocalyptic bunker. He smiled gently. You're kinder than you let on. Don't romanticize this. Too late. She dragged a hand through her hair. Fine, she said. We'll alternate. Alternate? Nights, she snapped. One of us gets the bed, one gets the couch once it dries. Jax considered this. I don't hate that. I don't care. He leaned forward. Who goes first? She met his gaze. You, she said. Jax blinked. Really? I don't trust you unconscious yet. His smile softened again, something genuine flickering beneath the humor. Good call, he said. That night, Sasha lay awake on the couch, listening to the house creak around her. She told herself it was the unfamiliar sounds keeping her up, not the fact that Jax was down the hall, not the way his laughter had lingered, and not the quiet sense that the walls she'd built were already under renovation. She stared at the ceiling. 6 weeks, she reminded herself. Just 6 weeks. By day 3, Sasha had learned 2 things. 1. Renovation was a polite word for destruction with a vision. And 2. Jax Rowan treated chaos like a personal love language. Tell me again, Sasha said, standing in the middle of what used to be the guesthouse living room, why there is paint on the ceiling. Jax, balanced on a ladder and humming something upbeat and deeply irritating, glanced up. "Perspective," he said. "That is not an answer. It's abstract. This is not an art installation. This is my aunt's house." "Our aunt's house," he corrected. She pointed a paint-splattered finger at him. "Do not hour me." He smiled unrepentant and reached across the ladder to smooth the paint along the edge. The ladder wobbled. "Jax!" Sasha started. The ladder slipped sideways. Jax yelped and instinct kicked in before logic had time to protest. Sasha lunged forward, grabbing the ladder, bracing it with her shoulder. Jax froze above her. Their faces were suddenly far too close. Paint dripped one slow, traitorous drop, landing squarely on Sasha's nose. They both stared at it, then at each other. Jax burst out laughing, but Sasha didn't. She reached up, wiped the paint with her finger, and stared at it like it had personally betrayed her. "You," she said calmly, "are dead." Jax laughed harder. "You saved me. I didn't sign up to be a hero." "You absolutely did," he said. "You even wore the uniform." He gestured at her old t-shirt and leggings. Very brave woman in a renovation montage. She grabbed the paint roller and flicked it at him. White paint splattered across his chest. Jax gasped dramatically. "Oh, it's like that?" "It's exactly like that." He dipped his brush and swiped a clean line of paint along her arm. She squeaked. "Oh, no," she said, backing up. "You crossed a line." Jax stepped down from the ladder, eyes bright. "I crossed several," he said, structurally and emotionally. The paint war lasted 6 minutes. 6 chaotic, ridiculous minutes of laughter, near collisions and splattered walls. Sasha hadn't laughed like this in years. When it ended, they stood in the middle of the room, both panting, both covered in white paint, like they'd been attacked by a very aggressive cloud. Jax wiped his face with the back of his hand. "Worth it," he declared. Sasha leaned against the wall, her chest heaving, but she was smiling. That realization hit her harder than the paint. She straightened abruptly. "We should clean up." Jax nodded, watching her carefully. "Yeah." The moment passed. Later, after showers and sandwiches eaten over renovation plans, Sasha sat at the table reviewing receipts. Jax leaned in beside her. "You okay?" he asked quietly. She didn't look up. "Fine. I don't like losing control." "I know." She glanced at him. "You do?" "You plan," he said gently. "You prepare and you brace yourself in this house," he continued. "It's full of memories you didn't ask for." Her hand stilled. "My aunt believed this place saved people," she said softly. "She said it gave them room to breathe." Jax nodded. "Sounds like her." "She also believed," Sasha added, "that love shows up when you're not watching." Jax met her gaze. "That sounds dangerous." She huffed a laugh. "Exactly." They sat in companionable silence, sunlight slanting through newly cleaned windows. For the first time since arriving, Sasha didn't feel like she was waiting to escape. She felt present, which was far more unsettling. When night came, lying in bed, she stared at the ceiling again. This time the creaks didn't bother her. What bothered her was the laughter still echoing in her chest and the quiet fear that she might want more of it. The storm rolled in just after midnight. Sasha knew because the first crack of thunder split the skies so violently it rattled the windows and yanked her out of sleep, like a rude awakening from a dream she hadn't been ready to leave. She sat up, her heart racing. Another boom followed, closer this time. The lights flickered once, then went out. "Oh, fantastic," she muttered. She reached for her phone. No signal. Of course. The house creaked in protest as rain lashed against it, wind howling like it had personal grievances. Sasha swung her legs over the bed, padding carefully into the hallway. "Jax," she called. There was no answer. She took another step. Thunder roared again, louder, angrier, and the floorboard beneath her foot let out a sharp crack. Sasha yelped. The door at the end of the hall opened immediately, and Jax appeared, shirtless, hair rumpled, holding a torch in one hand. "Sasha," he said, "you okay?" She froze. This was not the man she'd argued with over paint colors. This was a dangerous, half-asleep version of him, all warm skin and concern and quiet presence. She cleared her throat. "The power's out." "Yeah," he said. "Storm took it. You scared?" "No." Another thunderclap punctuated the lie. Jax smiled gently. "You jumped." "I was startled." "Sure." He stepped closer, angling the torch so it illuminated the hallway. The light sent shadows across his face, catching the edges of a smile that wasn't teasing this time. "You can stay here," he said. "Hallway's safer than wandering." She nodded, suddenly acutely aware of how close he was. The rain hammered harder. Wind screamed through the trees. The house groaned. "Your aunt used to say storms shake loose what we hide," Jack said quietly. Sasha looked at him. "Did she?" "Uh-huh. She made me sit through one when I was 15, wouldn't let me turn on the radio." "What did she say?" Jack shrugged. "That if you listen long enough, you hear what matters." The silence between them deepened. Another flash of lightning lit the hallway, briefly illuminating everything between them. Jax's breath caught. Sasha felt it too, the pull. The awareness that this moment was standing on a cliff edge. She shouldn't be here. She shouldn't feel this. "Jax," she said softly, as if saying his name might ground her. He didn't move. "Yeah? This is a bad idea." He nodded. "I know." Neither of them stepped back. The thunder rolled again, long and low, like a warning. Jax reached out slowly, hesitating just long enough to give her time to stop him. She didn't. His fingers brushed a strand of hair from her face. It was a simple touch that felt like a confession. Sasha's breath hitched. "This is where," she said quietly, "everything goes wrong." Jax's voice dropped. "All right." Their faces were inches apart now. She could see the flecks of gold in his eyes, feel the warmth of him, smell rain and soap on him. Her heart pounded, and as she leaned in, the power surged back on. Light flooded the hallway. The moment shattered. Sasha pulled back like she'd been burned. "No," she said sharply. No, this can't happen." Jack stepped back immediately, hands up. "Hey, okay." She ran a hand through her hair, breath uneven. "This is exactly what I don't do," she said. "I don't blur lines. I don't make mistakes." "You didn't," he said gently. She laughed once, brittle. "I almost did." Jack studied her. "Sasha," he said, careful and quiet. "Whatever this is, it doesn't have to be a mistake." Her walls slammed back into place. "It does," she said, "because I don't survive them." Silence stretched. Jax nodded slowly. "Got it." She retreated a step. "We need to reset." "Okay, this stays professional." "Okay." "And that," she added, gesturing vaguely between them, "doesn't happen again." Jack swallowed. "Understood." She turned and walked back to her room with her heart pounding and her chest aching. Behind her, Jack stood in the hallway, torch forgotten at his side, staring at the place where she'd almost kissed him. Neither of them slept after that, and the house, newly lit and humming with power, suddenly felt much smaller. The timing could not have been worse if the universe had coordinated it with malicious intent. Sasha was halfway through scraping paint from the window frame, armed with a scraper, determination, and the resolve not to think about Jax's hand brushing her cheek the night before, when a familiar voice drifted up the driveway. "Sasha." Her stomach dropped. She didn't turn around immediately. She knew that voice, knew the careful neutrality, the way it carried just enough concern to sound decent to outsiders. Jax, sanding a door nearby, looked up. "That yours?" he asked lightly. She closed her eyes. "Unfortunately." Then she turned. Daniel stood at the foot of the porch, wearing the same easy smile that had once convinced her love was supposed to feel safe. He looked exactly as she remembered, polished, calm, and just slightly out of place in a town that didn't care about titles or appearances. "Daniel," she said flatly. "I heard about your aunt," he said. "I'm sorry." "Thank you." He climbed the steps, gaze flicking briefly to Jax before returning to her. "I was in the area." Jax snorted under his breath, not subtle either. Daniel extended a hand. "Daniel." "Jax," he said, shaking it firmly, just long enough to be annoying. They released simultaneously, both men already measuring something unspoken. "I didn't know you'd brought help," Daniel said. "I didn't," Sasha replied. "He came with the house." Jax grinned. "Like mold or character." Daniel's smile tightened. "I thought you might want company," he said to Sasha. "Support." Her laugh was short. "You've never shown up for support before." Jax pretended to focus intensely on the door. Daniel exhaled. "I deserved that." Sasha studied him. Once, seeing him would have twisted something in her chest. Now it felt like looking at a photograph of someone else's life. "What do you want, Daniel?" she asked. He hesitated. "Closure." Jax straightened. "Ah, the ghost of marriages past." Daniel shot him a look. "I'm speaking to my wife." "Ex-wife," Sasha corrected. "And you can speak. I'm not obligated to listen." Jax bit his lip to hide a smile. Daniel nodded slowly. "Fair." They moved inside, the house suddenly too quiet. Jax hovered awkwardly near the doorway. "I'll, check the breaker." Sasha shot him a look, grateful and annoyed all at once. When they were alone, Daniel gestured toward the kitchen table. "Sit." She didn't. "What closure do you think you're owed?" she asked. "I hurt you," he said. "I know that." "You left," she replied, "during the 1 year I asked you not to." He flinched. "My job was always more important," she finished. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. "I thought if I succeeded, everything else would fall into place." She folded her arms. "That's not love." He looked at her then. "You're different." She smiled faintly. "So are you." Jax reappeared in the doorway, clearly unable to resist. "Power's solid," he said cheerfully. "Also, just so you know, the house has very thin walls." Daniel's jaw tightened. "I don't think this conversation concerns you." Jax shrugged. "Hard to say. I live here." Daniel looked back at Sasha. "You're living here?" "Temporarily." "With him?" "Yes." Jax leaned against the frame. "Happily." Sasha shot him a warning look. Daniel's voice softened. "I just wanted to know if there was still something." The room went still. Sasha's answer came easily. "No." Daniel absorbed that, nodded once, and stood. "I wish you well," he said. "Both of you." Jax waited until the car disappeared before speaking. "Well," he said, "that was aggressively polite." She laughed weakly. "That's his specialty." Jax watched her carefully. "You okay?" She nodded. "Yeah, I think I just needed to see him to realize I was already done." Jax smiled. "Good." She met his gaze. "Why good?" "Because," he said gently, "you deserve something that stays." Her chest tightened. She turned back to the window, scraping paint with renewed focus. But the crack in her walls had widened, and Jax had seen straight through it. The wine was Jax's fault. Sasha would maintain that forever. If he hadn't produced a bottle from nowhere, emergency morale booster, he'd called it, she would have gone to bed early, finished the day emotionally intact, and not ended up sitting cross-legged on the living room floor at midnight laughing so hard her stomach hurt. But here they were. I'd like to take a moment and pause. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Please show a kindness by clicking like and subscribe. It would help our channel so much. Let's continue our story. They sat surrounded by renovation debris, paint cans, folded drop cloths, and the faint lemon cleaner smell that never quite left the house. A single lamp glowed in the corner. Sasha tipped her glass toward him. I can't believe you just admitted that. Jax grinned. You promised no judgment. You used a YouTube tutorial to fix plumbing. And, he said, it worked. Briefly. Details. She laughed again, shaking her head. My aunt would have loved you. Jax's smile softened. I know. She studied him over the rim of her glass. You miss her. Every day, he said easily. Then quieter, she gave me a place when I didn't have one. Sasha swallowed. She did that. Silence settled. Then Jax leaned back on his hands. So, want to know something embarrassing? She raised an eyebrow. Always. I talked to the house. She blinked. I'm sorry? When I'm working, he said, I tell it what I'm doing, encouragement, pep talks. That explains a lot. It listens better than most people. She smiled. I talk to spreadsheets. See, he pointed at her, we're practically soulmates. Her smile faltered, and Jax noticed. Too far? He asked gently. She shook her head. No, just unexpected. He nodded. Yeah. They drank in silence for a moment. Sasha exhaled slowly. I don't do this. Sit on floors? Jax asked. Open up. He turned toward her fully now. You are opening up. She laughed softly. By accident. Accidents count, he said. Her gaze lingered on him. On the way, his smile faded into something more serious when he thought she wasn't watching. I'm scared, she admitted, of wanting something again. Jax didn't joke this time. That makes sense, he said. Wanting means risking. She nodded. I was very good at being safe. And very lonely, he added, not unkindly. Her throat tightened, but she didn't look away. Jax set his glass down first. Sasha, he said quietly, we don't have to pretend this isn't happening. She swallowed. We said. I know what we said, he replied, but I also know what this feels like. He didn't touch her, didn't crowd her. He waited. That might have been the most dangerous part. She reached out first. Her fingers brushed his wrist, light and questioning. Jax inhaled sharply but didn't move. Tell me to stop, she whispered. I won't, he said, but I can tell you we'll be okay. She leaned in, and this time nothing interrupted them. The kiss was slow, hesitant at first, like they were testing the ground beneath their feet. Then deeper, warmer, full of things neither of them had said out loud. Sasha pulled back first, breathless. This changes things, she said. Yes, Jax agreed. It does. She pressed her forehead to his. I don't regret it. Good, he said softly. Neither do I. They stayed like that for a moment, close, honest, unguarded. Then reality crept back in. Sasha sat back, running a hand through her hair. We should stop. Jax nodded. Yeah. Not because they wanted to, because they knew it mattered. They cleaned up quietly, moving around each other with a new awareness, glances lingering, smiles softer. That night, Sasha lay awake again, but this time she smiled into the darkness. She had crossed the line, and suddenly, she wasn't sure she wanted to go back. The problem wasn't the kiss. The problem was everything it made impossible to ignore. Sasha realized that the next morning when she caught herself listening for Jax's footsteps before she even opened her bedroom door. When she brushed her teeth, she stared at her reflection and thought, this is how it starts. Careless, soft, hopeful, dangerous. She walked into the kitchen to find Jax already there, shirt buttoned, coffee mug in hand, pretending very badly not to look at her. Morning, he said. Morning, she replied, equally stiff. There was a thick, uncomfortable silence. Jax cleared his throat. So, about last night. Sasha cut in immediately. We need to reset. He froze. I don't regret it, she rushed on, because that part was true. But I also can't pretend this doesn't complicate things. Jax studied her. Complicate how? This house, the timeline, the exit strategy. My exit strategy, he said quietly. She faltered. That's not what I meant. It sounds like it is. She sighed, rubbing her temples. I came here to clean something up, Jax, not to start something. His jaw tightened. You think I don't know that? She opened her mouth and closed it again. He set his mug down carefully. I didn't kiss you because I was bored, he said, or lonely, or confused. Neither did I, she almost said. Instead, she said, you don't understand what happens after. He laughed once, humorless. Then explain it to me. She hesitated, and that was enough. Jax straightened. You know what? Don't. He stepped back, putting physical distance between them for the first time since she'd arrived. I've seen this before, he continued. People who run when something real shows up. That's not fair, she snapped. No? His voice rose. Because it feels like you're already packing. She flinched. I'm protecting myself, she said sharply. And I'm what? He asked. Collateral damage? Silence slammed down between them. Sasha crossed her arms. This was supposed to be temporary. So was the house, Jax shot back. So was I. That's not what I said. It's what you meant. The words hung there heavy, unfixable. Jax exhaled slowly. We crossed a line. Yes, she said, relief laced with regret. We did. So let's redraw it, he said, right now. Her heart pounded. Agreed. From that moment on, they moved around each other carefully. Renovation continued, but the laughter disappeared. Conversations became functional. Sasha hated it. Jax hated it more. That evening, she overheard him on the phone in the backyard. I'm thinking of taking a job out of town, he said quietly. Yeah, sooner rather than later. Her chest tightened. When she stepped back inside, the house felt hollow. That night, Sasha sat alone in the living room, staring at the walls they'd painted together. She had wanted safety, she had gotten silence, and she wondered if she'd mistaken control for survival. Jax started packing the next morning. Sasha knew without seeing it. The house felt different, lighter in the wrong places, heavier everywhere else. Drawers opened and closed with purpose. Footsteps moved with intention instead of ease. He was leaving. The thought settled in her chest like a weight she hadn't prepared to carry. She stood in the doorway of the guest room, his room now, despite everything, and watched him fold clothes with meticulous care. You don't have to do this, she said. Jax didn't look up. I do. She leaned against the doorframe. The renovations aren't finished. I'll finish my part, he replied. From a distance. That's not what the agreement. This isn't about the agreement, he said gently, finally meeting her eyes. I don't want you to think, she started. I know what you don't want, Jax said. You've been very clear. The words weren't angry. That somehow hurt more. She stepped inside. I'm just trying not to repeat old mistakes. Jax zipped his bag. Sometimes avoiding pain means avoiding joy, too. She winced. You make it sound simple. It's not, he said, but it's honest. Silence stretched between them, thick with unsaid things. I meant what I said, Sasha whispered, about not regretting it. I know, Jax replied. That's why I'm leaving. She laughed softly, bitter. Because it mattered. Exactly. Later that afternoon, she walked alone down to the beach. The tide was low, the sand cool beneath her feet. Gulls cried overhead, the sound sharp and lonely. She kicked at a shell, then another, replaying every moment she'd pushed instead of pulled. "You're protecting yourself," she told herself, but the words rang hollow. Her aunt's voice echoed in her memory. "Love shows up when you're not watching." Sasha stopped walking. She had been watching too hard. That evening, she found a photo tucked behind a loose board in the hallway. A younger Lydia, arms slung around a teenage Jax, both grinning like they'd cracked some private joke. On the back, in familiar looping script, "Some people aren't meant to pass through, they're meant to stay." Sasha pressed the photo to her chest. Jax wasn't running from her, she was running from herself, and suddenly the thought of him walking away felt unbearable. Sasha didn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Lydia's handwriting looping through her thoughts like a challenge rather than a memory. They're meant to stay. By sunrise, she knew two things with painful certainty. One, Jax was leaving that morning, and two, if she let him go, she would regret it more than any mistake she'd ever made. She moved quickly, putting on her shoes and pulling her hair back. She grabbed her keys from the hook by the door, a hook Jax had installed crookedly because, as he'd said, perfect is boring. She found him outside loading his bag into the back of his truck. "Jax!" she called. He paused, one hand still gripping the tailgate. For a moment she thought he might pretend not to hear her. Then he turned. She crossed the yard, heart pounding. "I'm not good at this," she said breathlessly. "Explaining things, letting go of control." He waited. "I've spent years convincing myself that safety was the same as peace," she continued. "But it's not. It's just quiet." Jax's expression softened, but he didn't step closer. "I don't want quiet anymore," she said. "I want home." He studied her, searching for hesitation. "And what happens," he asked carefully, "when it gets hard?" She swallowed. "Then I stay." The silence stretched, then Jax closed the tailgate slowly. "You don't get to say that unless you mean it," he said. "I do." He took a step toward her, then another. "You scared me," he admitted, "because I thought you were choosing a life without risk." She smiled sadly. "I was choosing a life without pain. I forgot they come together." He stopped an arm's length away. "I can't be temporary," he said. "Not again." "I don't want you to be." Her voice didn't shake. Jax exhaled a long, steady breath, as if something inside him finally settled. "Okay," he said. "Then we do this honestly." She nodded. "Honestly?" He smiled soft, real, unguarded. "That hook by the door," he said. "I left it crooked on purpose." She laughed through sudden tears. "I know." He reached for her, slow and deliberate. This time when he kissed her, there was no hesitation. They stayed like that for a long moment, the house behind them quiet and waiting. For the first time, Sasha felt like she wasn't fixing something broken. She was building something new. The guest house opened on a Saturday. Not with a ribbon cutting or a speech. Lydia would have hated both. But with fresh paint, open windows, and the smell of coffee drifting down the hall like an invitation. Sasha stood at the front desk, fingers curled around a clipboard she didn't need, watching as the first guests wandered in. A young couple, nervous smiles, suitcases bumping into walls. She felt a strange, unfamiliar flutter in her chest. Pride. Jax appeared beside her, brushing sawdust from his jeans. "You're hovering." "I am managing," she corrected. He smiled. "You're glowing." She shot him a look that didn't quite hide her smile. "You're biased." Wildly. The guests disappeared down the hall, laughter echoing behind them. The house felt alive, warm, purposeful, exactly as Lydia had promised it would be. Sasha exhaled. "We did it." Jax nodded. "We did." They stepped outside, the late afternoon sun washing the porch in gold. Jax leaned against the railing, studying the house like it might vanish if he blinked too long. "She would have loved this," he said. "She would have loved you," Sasha replied softly. He looked at her then, and something in his expression changed. "Hey," he said, "there's something I need to say." Her heart skipped. "Okay?" "I'm not good at half things," he continued. "I don't want something that fits around fear or expiration dates." She stepped closer. "Neither do I." He took her hands, grounding and warm. "I love you," Jack said simply, "not because you're easy, because you're brave enough to stay." Her breath caught. She'd imagined this moment once years ago with someone else. It had sounded different then. This felt solid. "I love you too," she said, the words settling into place like they'd been waiting. "Even when I'm difficult, especially then." He laughed softly. "I never doubted that." They kissed with the quiet certainty of people who had chosen each other. Later that evening, they sat on the porch steps sharing takeaway and watching the lights flicker on inside the guest house. Sasha rested her head on Jax's shoulder. "I don't want to leave," she said. "Good," he replied, "because I was hoping you'd stay." She smiled. "This place? It doesn't feel like an obligation anymore." "It feels like a beginning," he said. She thought of spreadsheets and schedules, of life lived cautiously. Then she thought of laughter on the floor, crooked hooks, storms, and choosing risk. "Lydia was right," Sasha said quietly, "about love." Jack squeezed her hand. She usually was. The house hummed behind them, full, warm, and waiting, and for the first time in a long while, Sasha felt exactly where she was meant to be. 1 year later, the guest house was fully booked. Sasha stood in the kitchen, barefoot, hair pulled into a loose knot, pouring coffee into mismatched mugs while sunlight streamed through the windows. Laughter drifted down the hall, guests checking out, promises made to return. She smiled to herself. This was her life now. It wasn't tidy or perfectly planned. It was full. Jax leaned against the counter, watching her with the same expression he wore these days, content, slightly amused, deeply present. "You're doing the thing again," he said. "What thing?" "The staring into space like you're mentally thanking the universe." She handed him a mug. "It deserves gratitude." He clinked his mug against hers. "To chaos." "To staying," she replied. Outside, the wind rustled through the trees, gentle this time. The house creaked not in protest, but in familiarity, like an old friend settling in. They walked the halls together, checking rooms, sharing small touches, his hand at the small of her back, her fingers brushing his arm as they passed. Love had become quieter, steadier, less about sparks, more about warmth. Later, they sat on the porch steps, the day winding down. "I used to think endings were failures," Sasha said thoughtfully. "Proof I'd done something wrong." Jack smiled. "And now?" "Now I think endings are just doors pretending to be walls." He leaned in, kissing her temple. "That sounds like something Lydia would say." Sasha laughed. She would have taken credit for it. They watched as a new guest arrived, suitcase in hand, eyes wide with the same mix of hope and uncertainty Sasha once carried. "Ready?" Jax asked. She stood, confident and grounded. "Yes," she said, "I am." And as they opened the door together, Sasha realized something simple and profound. Love hadn't arrived like a storm. It had arrived like home. Sometimes we all need shelter. Not just from rain, but from the storms of life, the bad days, the hard moments, the times when we feel utterly alone. In memory of everyone who's ever stood in the rain, feeling hopeless. In honor of everyone who's ever stopped to ask, "Are you okay?" In gratitude for the quiet heroes who transform grief into kindness, pain into purpose, and one simple act into a movement that changes lives. May we all be umbrellas for someone else's storm. God bless you.